Hello, everybody. It's Friday today, and it is time for Chapter 8 The Top Secret Mission. I wonder what's going to happen to Jazz. I know that she's very, very upset at the moment because all of the other children in the class got to go outside and to explore the lichen fields and the plants that they were trying to cultivate and grow on Mars. But Jazz and Elijah didn't go because they were in too much trouble. Okay? So, Jazz wants to become an adventurer, and Jazz wants to take her opportunity to show that she can also be a space explorer and an adventurer. Okay. Sol 115, Mars year 57. Greetings, future diary readers. This is Elijah reporting for duty once more. Jazz has designated me to scribe our top secret mission, and I take that responsibility very seriously, even though it's very difficult to write while I'm wearing a spacesuit. What follows is, as always, a true and faithful account of events which have led us to an interesting point. But let us start from the beginning. The Sol began when Jazz arrived at my door just after breakfast. It's Saturday, so I was still in my pajamas. She had an explorer hat on her head and a bulging backpack on her back. We have a top secret mission, she said. Get dressed. I got dressed as fast as I could, and I told my parents that I was off to play with Jazz. Ellie Mae wanted to come too, but Jazz said that the game we were playing would be too scary for her. I asked Jazz what our mission consisted of as she dragged me along the corridors. We're undercover agents on a quest to find real-life aliens, she whispered. She smiled and waved at some grown-ups walking past in the other direction. We mustn't act suspiciously, or we'll be found out. Come on, we haven't got long before the buggy leaves. Obviously, I knew right away that we'd be perfect for this mission. After all, I know all about Martian rocks, and Jazz knows all about adventuring from her gran. Not to mention Jazz's racing skills and my talent at sneaking into alien environments to investigate strange life forms. We learn all of that in the fun zone on the spacecraft, playing Galaxy Racers and Alien Task Force. I followed Jazz until we got to the equipment room. If anyone asks, we've been sent to do extra chores, said Jazz as she pushed open the door. I laughed at how seriously she was taking her game. The equipment room was deserted. The blue spacesuits hung from their racks, just like they had after we'd cleaned and repaired them many sols ago. The suits looked eerie and soulless, with their blank helmets and dangling limbs. The air had the distinctive eggy smell of Mars soil. Jazz closed the door behind us with a snap and explained the next stage of our plan. The Mars buggy is in a big hangar outside the airlock. If we want to go there, we will need to wear spacesuits. Otherwise, we'll explode. I tried to explain to Jazz that explode was probably the wrong word, as you'd be more likely to freeze on Mars than anything else. But Jazz gave me a look like she didn't need my help. Well, whatever the reason, she said, we can't go on our top secret mission if we're not wearing spacesuits. You're shorter than me, so I'll let you have the very smallest if you like. My stomach did a little somersault, and my heart started to beat a little quicker than before. You mean we're really putting them on? Are you sure that we're allowed? I asked. Jazz rolled her eyes. We're just trying them on, for now. Anyway, it's training for when we're famous Mars scientists and get to go out on expeditions whenever we like. I suspected that if an adult caught us, we might still get in trouble, even if we were just trying. However, I really wanted to be prepared for when I am a famous scientist. It takes ages to get into a spacesuit. There are lots of things that need to be carefully sealed up so that you absolutely definitely can't die. Then you need to attach the electronic pack. It hangs over your shoulders and straps around your waist, and it's really heavy. This is the device that filters oxygen out of the atmosphere and monitors temperature and radiation when researchers go out on the surface of Mars. We learn all about how to use the spacesuits and why we need them before we set off for Mars, but I hadn't had the chance to try one yet. The longer we struggled with our suits, the more I wondered what would happen if any grown-ups caught us. Although my nerves were fizzing, Jazz kept saying things like, are you all present and correct, Lieutenant Elijah? Ready for launch in T-minus 10 minutes. Those aliens won't know what hit them. Somehow, this made me feel better. Once we had our suits on, Jazz stuffed 2 of the silvery ponchos into her backpack in case of radiation. She tried to jam her explorer hat on top of her helmet, but it wobbled like it would fall off at any moment. She decided to leave it behind. Then, she said it was time to get in the Mars buggy, and she marched out of the equipment room and down the deserted corridor, stopping outside the airlock doors. I ran after her. Wait, Jazz, you mean we're really going outside? Yep. My knees trembled, and for a moment I thought that I might need to sit down. Oh, on the surface of Mars? Uh-huh. Without a grown-up? That's the plan. It suddenly dawned on me that this wasn't one of Jazz's ordinary games. The nerves that had been slowly fizzing away started to tremble more violently. I was willing to play along in the spacesuit, but this would absolutely land us in a whole world of trouble. I struggled to keep my voice from shaking. We're definitely not allowed, I stammered. Aren't you fed up, Elijah? We're always stuck inside cleaning spacesuits and shelling cockroaches and learning science from textbooks, when the whole of Mars is right there, through those doors. And everyone had a chance to see it, except for us. Even Letitia. Don't you want to go out there? This could be the biggest adventure of our lives. Through my worries, I pictured it. Me and Jazz, side by side, strolling across the red rock of Mars towards the distant mountains. I did want to go outside very much. I mean, it would only be what everyone else was allowed to do. When we got to the airlock, there was a keypad to get through, and neither of us knew the code. We stood there dressed up with nowhere to go. Our mission seemed to be over before it had properly begun. Curses, said Jazz. Her voice was muffled through her helmet. That's when I spotted something. If you look at the numbers, some of them are rubbed off like they've been pressed loads of times. I said, look, 4, 2, and 0 are more faded than the rest. So there's a code, right, okay. I knew instantly what we had to do. Jazz gave me a piece of paper from her diary and a pencil, and I wrote down every possible code combination like this. 402, 240, 042, 420, 204, 024. There were only 6 possibilities. We get 3 guesses before it sets off an alarm, Jazz said. I stared at her in disbelief. What? She shrugged. I might have tried to get into the labs a couple of nights ago, that's all. I reminded Jazz that most of the codes had 4 numbers, and Jazz said that perhaps this one was less secure, but that didn't sound likely to me. The first number she typed the first number on my list, 402. Nothing happened. She started to punch in the numbers again. As soon as she had pressed one button, the keypad buzzed and turned red, as though an incorrect string of 4-digit numbers had been entered. It didn't make sense. There were only 3 buttons that had the numbers rubbed off, but the keypad seemed to want 4. For a moment, we were both stumped. I'm not bragging, but I'm the one who worked it out. I've got a strategic mind, you see. Anyway, I realised what it meant quite quickly. One of the numbers had to be used twice. This was a disaster. We only had 2 guesses left, and we had no idea what the possibilities were now. I racked my brain for some insignificant number that would let us get through that airlock. That's when we heard the footsteps. Footsteps were getting louder and louder. They were heading in our direction. Beep! I whirled around to see Jazz tongue out, punching in another code. As the keypad buzzed, I turned red again. It hit me. 2044, the year the colony was founded. I dived for the keypad and punched it in. With a hiss, the airlock doors opened. I grabbed Jazz's arm and jumped into the airlock. With the press of a button, the doors closed behind us. Standing in the small space, Jazz gazed at me in admiration. I think it was hard to tell through her visor, and she gave me a high five. She pressed a second button, and the airlock opened. There it was. Mars. Jazz and I took a few tentative steps outside. The rocky red ground crunched beneath our heavy space boots. The sun was a small, cold speck in an amber sky. This was unlike anything that I'd ever seen before. The red landscape stretched out for miles and miles without a tree or a plant in sight. At home, I would often look at the patchwork fields and see the birds flitting around in the blue sky, but here there was nothing to break up the vast red plains. Seeing Mars from the greenhouse in the colony was one thing, but actually to be outside, surrounded by a sea of orange, was breathtaking. Before us was the vacant landing pad, covered in a thin coating of red dust. To the left stood the white dome of the greenhouse and the steaming funnels of the water treatment facility. To the right, the humming oxygen plant and the squat hangar where they keep the Mars buggy. I bent down to inspect the strata in the rocky ground, but Jazz was impatiently pulling me towards the hangar. "Come on, explorer!" Her voice caught me by surprise as it rattled out from the speakers inside my helmet. "The Mars buggy is this way." I asked if she was planning on driving the buggy, but she reassured me that she just wanted to see inside. There was no code on the hangar entrance. After all, no one could get out here without first getting out through the airlock. We crept into the hangar and with Jazz keeping a careful watch for aliens. As soon as we were sure that the coast was clear, we ran for the Mars buggy. There was, imagine a cross between a 4x4 and a jumbo jet. That's the Mars buggy. There's a button on the side that makes the door open like a wing. Inside, there's a pilot's seat, a dashboard of buttons and dials, and a screen and a microphone to communicate with base. Then, in the back, there's a storage space for luggage and equipment. That's where I'm sitting right now, with Jazz's backpack, which is mostly full of warm socks. Jazz is in the front, playing as being an explorer. She's twiddling the steering wheel and hitting and hitting the buttons. Don't worry, they're not doing anything because the power's turned off. Sometimes she tells me that she's sighted an alien, and I stop writing to help her go and capture it and bring it back to the Mars buggy. Jag holds the tranquilizer gun. It's a screwdriver, really, and I hold the net, which is just one of the silvery ponchos. Now she says that we're approaching a Martian city. It has domes and towers and whizzing things in the sky. Jazz says that the Martian police are coming to get us, and to stop writing because... Wow, look how the chapter's ended there in the middle of the sentence. And look, there they are, Jazz and Elijah, looking out across Mars. And they're right now stuck in the back of the Mars buggy, and I wonder what's going to happen next. Check the next YouTube video clip for the activity that comes along with this chapter.